I'm Michelle from Cannabis with Michelle. I'm a certified cannabis health coach who helps people find relief from many different ailments using medical cannabis. In this series, I'll talk to patients and colleagues who have incredible health journeys with cannabis. They use cannabis as part of their treatment plan for everything from Crohn's to PTSD and chronic pain. We'll hear their stories about how medical cannabis has helped them manage their conditions and feel better than they ever have before. Thanks for watching. Okay, welcome to the Cannabis with Michelle interviews. Today I have JJ from Naturalistically Now. I'm so happy to have you here. So JJ's bio, her intro, JJ always had cannabis in her life, but she didn't always have cancer. Offer a diagnosis at 43, a death sentence by her doctors, her herbalist roots propelled her to seek a way to heal the damage she knew she had created. Rekindling a lifelong relationship with cannabis, JJ discovered that this plant provided more than a way to chill after a hard day's work. It was a medicine with healing potential. Now, with no evidence of disease, JJ's made her mission to learn and share all she can about cannabis and what it's capable of. As a certified cannabis health coach and educator with Naturalistically Now and Educanation, JJ provides support and guidance, one-to-one in a group setting at the Canacdotal Collective. So thank you so much for joining me here today. We at the Effective Cannabis newsletter and me with Cannabis with Michelle interviews. We're just so thankful for you being able to be our first guest editor and on the healthy lung issue. Mm-hmm. Like healthy lungs is such an important topic, and there are so many myths and assumptions out there about cannabis and lung health. And then we've also got an article from you in our newsletter, and it's titled Dry Herb Vaporization for Lung Health.
Yes. So, I mean, thank you for mentioning that. And just, before we dive in, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me here today to talk about this subject. I also have to express my gratitude for the honor of being the Effective Cannabis newsletter's first ever guest editor. Super proud of all the work that you have all put into this beautiful newsletter, which is jam-packed full of incredible information and resources. So that is amazing, and I'm happy to be a part of it. I was so impressed by everything that you've all been doing that for me it was imperative to become an ECN advocate. So I'm very just happy to be aligned with you all, and I'm very grateful for you having me here today.
And we appreciate your contributions and for you being part of the team. You have so much to share with all of us, for sure.
Thank you.
You only briefly mentioned in your article that you had been living with lung cancer for some time. What was it like to hear those words? What went through your mind?
Well, Michelle, I'm pretty certain I knew I had cancer, and it was very hard for me to face that or admit that to myself, but there was something deep inside of me that knew that that's what was going on. I had been to the doctor several times with pain and shortness of breath, and they had done so many tests and already ruled out so many different things. So they were having a really hard time, pinpointing what was going on. So I had suggested to them that, cancer is probably something that they should take a look at. And they ended up, doing a CT scan and finding out that that was indeed what I was dealing with. So, when that happened, my reaction was not really typical, probably for most people, but it was typical for me, I would say. I shared the same reaction that I did when my son got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when he was 2 years old. When that happened, I was kind of shocking to me because I was never afraid or sad or angry. I didn't cry, and I wasn't like, why me and why him? I was just like, okay, this is what's up. So what do I need to do? Like I just went into go mode, like, okay,
Okay.
what do I need to do? So when it came to the diabetes diagnosis, I knew I had to learn how to count carbs and inject insulin, and I had to learn how to manage his sick days and educate myself on his condition as much as possible. So, that's just what I did. I was his mom and it was my job to take care of him. So I just went to work. I just did my job. And then when it came to the cancer, you know, I I knew that what they were giving me was actually a wake up call. And I knew that in that moment that everything that I had done in my life or not done in my life up to this point is what brought me here. And it occurred to me that, unless I planned on dying, that I was going to need to completely change my life. So that's what I did. I went to work on changing my life.
That's a very different response than most people for sure.
Yeah.
Especially kind of knowing first and bringing it to the doctors.
Mhm.
So good for you for accepting it and then working with it, not against it, right?
Mm. Yes, thank you. Mm.
What were your options for treatment that your healthcare team gave to you at that point, now knowing that you have cancer? And then how
Mhm.
did you come to cannabis as part of your healing?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And, I have to clarify some words in the first part of that because unfortunately for me, I haven't had the privilege of experiencing what it's like to have a healthcare team. Although there are some oncologists that I, visit frequently at the local hospital, I can't say that I've been pleased with the level of care that I've been receiving there, nor do I feel that there's much teamwork or camaraderie going on in this situation. I really feel like I'm just another statistic to them. And it's been a very alienating experience, to say the least. The medical community has succeeded in making me feel completely and utterly alone in my situation. But, I'm a tough cookie and I'm the only child of what was once a single mom. So, I'm used to dealing with things on my own. So I'm managing just fine. But, there are a lot of people out there who aren't as strong as me. And that's a big part of the reason why I'm here today. So like when it came to my diagnosis, I actually experienced a couple iterations of it. It changed along the way. So the first diagnosis that they gave me was a doozy. Like my oncologist called me and offered me a complete death sentence. He was like, "You have stage 4 non-small cell lung cancer," which is, one of the most like people present with that more frequently than almost any other cancer. And that diagnosis statistically gave me 6 months to a year to live.
Wow.
And yeah, they had told me, well, we could potentially make it another month or two more, if, we hit you with enough chemo and radiation. But, I already knew that that was not something that I was going to be doing, that I was not going to put in known carcinogens into my body to deal with a carcinogen. So I was 100% over, for quality over quantity at that point. But thankfully, it didn't come to that because my scans and tests ended up getting sent out to different doctors, and they did some different tests, and it came back that I had this genetic mutation that presents in only 3 to 5% of non-small cell lung cancer patients. It's called an ALK plus fusion mutation. And they informed me that that mutation made the cancer susceptible to a targeted therapy that they suggested could prolong my life by about 5 more years. So, that was encouraging and, could be considered good news by most people. But the issue that I had with that is that, the end result of their treatment still ended with me dying. And I
In
just
five
wasn't
years.
okay with that. So,
And this targeted therapy was still like chemotherapy and radiation?
it's actually not. It's the targeted therapy is actually a protein kinase inhibitor. So what it does is just blocks a metabolic pathway in my body that was basically just supposed to stop the cancer from progressing. So it was never supposed to promote any kind of healing. It was just supposed to kind of stop it in its tracks. And then, but the medication that that they did put me on, it was called alectinib. Like it had, like cannabis, it has issues with tolerance, and you can develop a tolerance to this medication, which most people do, to eventually to the point where it stops working and then the cancer just progresses on, right? So again, like, I wasn't happy with that potential outcome. So, that's when I started looking for alternative options. And I spent weeks, weaving my way in and out of the rabbit holes, and, researching. And I ended up coming across a documentary called Weed the People. And that was like a hugely eye-opening moment for me. And by the end of the film, I was like 100% certain that I had found the alternative that I needed. So like the documentary was saying things I had never heard before, like, Rick Simpson oil and full extract cannabis oil and Phoenix tears. And I had never heard these things before. So I dove into the research, and before you knew it, I was starting on the Rick Simpson protocol myself. And that's basically, where it started for me implementing, cannabis as a treatment.
That's awesome. I do want to just mention that that JJ lived in Southern Ontario, where
Mhm.
maybe that's an issue with the healthcare, and that we don't in Canada always have like the full oncology team, and that
Mhm.
in Canada we are fully recreationally legal, and that it
Mhm.
was probably easier for you to dive into that kind of treatment within Canada. Was it after
100%.
legalization, or was it
Oh, yes,
before?
it was after legalization because it was like November 20th, 2019.
Oh yeah.
And I did initially first buy like the first like syringe of RSO that I was like looking around online and seeing what I could find, and ended up coming across a website that was somewhat local, and it was run by a group of Rastafarians. So I had always known, like, how sacred the plant was to them. So I put my trust in them, and I ordered some. And, Rick Simpson says in his documentary that, if it gets you high, then it'll probably work. So I tried the medicine, and well, it got me high. And so, I was confident that it was going to do what, was expected of it. So
Um, how was that first experience with with that RSO? I think it
well,
sounds like a story with the look on your face.
oh yeah, well, I mean, being a cannabis health coach now, I certainly wish I had one then, because, you know, I I have experience with cannabis, my whole, it's been a part of my life, my whole life. And so I thought, okay, my tolerance is pretty high. So, it's suggested to start with a half grain of rice size dose. So I started with a full size, yeah, I can do this. So I did the full rice grain, and then, I didn't feel anything for about 2 hours. So I was like, well, maybe my tolerance is just so high that, I'm going to take a little bit more. So I took probably another rice grain. And then come 3 a.m., I was wide awake. I was like twitchy and agitated, and my head was just going, 1,000 miles a minute. And yeah, I ended up just pacing in my kitchen for about 3 hours, with a cup of tea before I could like calm myself down enough to get to sleep.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah, and with a cannabis health coach, for sure, like those kind of situations can be avoided.
Yeah.
I know you'll be able to help people, start that process easier.
Mhm.
Were there any other alternative things that you looked into, like any other herbs, teas?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I
Herbal?
became a chartered herbalist in 2005. So, I mean, I've always had a really kind of deep connection to nature and to plant medicine. So that knowledge was, yeah, kind of the first thing I looked into, even before, learning about cannabis, because it was about a month after my diagnosis that I watched those documentaries and learned about it. So for me, the issues that I was having was, a lot of constipation from the opioids and that they had me on. So I added dandelion root and burdock root, which just took care of that. Like it was amazing. And then, I was trying to just add as many anti-inflammatory, immune support, supplements that I could put into my protocol. So I was taking like milk thistle, pedra, turmeric, ginger, mushrooms, vitamin C, D. Like I was taking up to 30 supplements, I think, at one point. But I'm like kind of trying to streamline that protocol now. And honestly, just the cannabis medicine as I've tweaked that protocol over the years, it's just been so tremendously beneficial that I don't feel that I need that much of the other support.
Um, yeah, it's great that it works so well with all the other herbs and other supplements, and as it's all natural plant medicine, right?
Exactly.
Were the doctors aware of and supportive of your choice to use cannabis as a treatment after you started bringing it in? Did you mention it to them?
Yeah, I mean they were aware, and they were since day one, but I can't say if they're not neither opposed or against it, because they basically just ignore it and pretend that it doesn't exist. So it's unfortunately that's been my experience. But that lack of acknowledgement is like what encourages me. Like every time I go to the hospital, I walk around with I bring my Bonnie Goldstein's Cannabis Medicine book, and I
Yeah.
walk around with the label facing out, and then I go into the office and I put it down on the desk with the label facing, so that when they walk into the room that they'll see it. And I've done this about 4 or 5 times now, and so far they have not said anything for or against it. And literally at my last appointment, after seeing like probably the sixth or seventh oncologist that I've seen in 3 years, I just kept pointing to it, and I was like, this part of my treatment is being ignored, and I'm fed up. I'm fed up
Right.
with it. So, that it's not
It,
being acknowledged, and like sadly,
yeah.
I'm not sure that they ever will. Like I think I need to be stable for 10 years or something before they're actually going to maybe admit that there's actually something to this medicine.
It's unfortunate that there's not enough education in the healthcare
Hmm.
world on
Hmm.
the endocannabinoid system and how it really does create that balance within our body to help us heal ourselves. Our
Exactly.
bodies are meant to heal ourselves. They naturally want to
Yes.
be in a state of health.
Yes. We
And
are perfectly
by being able
designed.
to, yeah, exactly, like being able to supplement our our natural way of healing our body with natural plant medicine,
Mhm.
just is kind of unheard of for doctors because it's so driven by the pharmaceutical world, really.
Exactly. Sadly.
But yeah, more education in our healthcare world is needed all around.
Hmm.
And not saying don't talk to your doctor, but make sure you're advocating strongly to your
Absolutely.
doctor. And
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Like I've got many people in my family, taking CBD or THCA at night or whatever, and I'm just like, tell your doctor. Just please tell your doctor. Like,
yes,
don't be shy. They need to know, and the more and more that people come to them and saying they're using this plant, then maybe they'll wake up to it then.
for sure.
Hmm.
So in your article, you said you reintroduced cannabis as an exit drug. Can you explain more of that?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, cannabis turned out to be like my gateway off of all the things that were harming my health. I mean, it helped me to eliminate those opioids after the very first uncomfortable dose that I took of that cannabis oil. Like no more Percocets. That was the end of those. I was maxing out on doses of like over the counter pain relievers before that, and I haven't had a need for one of those since. It's helped me to overcome like a 25-year long half a pack a day cigarette smoking habit. And, I've been alcohol free for over 2 years now. So, I mean, yeah, it was definitely the gateway off all the things that were bad for me. So, and, that pain elimination like just changed everything for me as well, right? And I think it's really important to note that I gave up cigarettes and alcohol cold turkey, and I can't recall a single withdrawal symptom, I can't think of, I didn't have mood swings or any kind of physical discomfort. I didn't suffer from any of these harsh cravings. Like I was able to just give them up just like that. And I really think that the utilization of cannabis really helped me through that.
Amazing. Did you try ever getting off of those like alcohol and cigarettes before unsuccessfully?
Alcohol, no. But cigarettes, yes, off and on. And yeah, would never had any success with that. Yeah.
I remember you saying in a story one time about uh like with your first experience of the RSO that even though it was uncomfortable and you took a little bit too much, what you did notice was that the pain was gone, and that was what was like, oh yeah, this is where I'm
Yeah.
going.
Oh yeah, so I was sold. I was like, oh yeah, that sucked for that, 3 hours or whatever, but I got through it. I didn't die. And I woke up the next morning with no pain. And the pain literally has not been back since in over 3 years. And so like, thank you. Thank you,
That's
cannabis.
incredible. That really
Yeah. hmm
is.
hmm
So I know you take RSO in an
hmm
oil form, and
hmm
most people think about cannabis as something you smoke. In your article, you also talk about the difference between smoking and dry herb vaporizing.
hmm
And is there anything else that you take or that you do or use? Do you use cannabis in other ways?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm utilizing cannabis in many forms now. Outside of the daily vaporization that I do, I ingest the RSO, which is, a highly concentrated cannabis oil, and I take that in pretty high quantities. That's brought me some amazing spiritual and physical healing. I also take a multi-cannabinoid tincture that features many of the acidic and neutral form cannabinoids like CBDA, CBGA to CBD and CBG, THCA. So I've added that into my protocol, and I use a cannabis salve on my body, on my chest, and sometimes I put it in my belly button to utilize the Picodi method. And I also insert cannabis suppositories nightly. Like I'm really doing it all. When you're dealing with cancer, there's so many studies out there that are showing what cannabis can do, how it induces apoptosis, which is, programmed cancer cell death, and helps prevent the further spread of cells. And, was looking into that research, and it was a case study actually that I came across by Dr. Justin Sulak that ended up encouraging me to expand my cannabinoid therapy in this way, because I had just been taking the RSO. That was it, because that was all I knew, all I had learned at the time. But then, after more research and study, and then seeing this case study of a woman who had a hormone positive, like a hormone driven breast cancer, she successfully healed herself using high doses of basically every cannabinoid under the sun, and along with psilocybin mushrooms. And she did that treatment, and her cancer gone. And then she reduced the amount that she was taking down to about 60% of what she was taking before, and her cancer represented. And then she went back on the protocol at the full dose, and again, her cancer resolved. So for me, that was tremendously inspiring. And that was, what made me completely change my protocol to just add in as much as I could. And I was also encouraged to increase my use of suppositories by an amazing woman named Corey Yelland, who for the past 10 years has been supporting with people with through cancer with cannabinoid therapy. And in that time, she's had an 80% success rate at reversing cancer and using cannabis. And the greatest success she has had has been in lung cancer patients. And she couldn't really understand why, but she did some research and she did some asking around, and she came to the understanding that, the colon and the lungs and the brain all run along the same meridians in the body. And so she realized that that's why she was having the greatest success with the suppository method for lung cancer. And, lung cancer typically metastasizes to the brain. So, it all seemed perfectly logical, to me when she mentioned that. So yeah, all of that is just what, expanded my cannabinoid protocol to where it is today.
For sure. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's fantastic. All of that works together, all part of the entourage effect, right? Like being
Yes,
able to
exactly.
hit all those different body parts and
Yeah.
organs and cells and work together.
Hmm.
It's beautiful. You said you had a relationship with cannabis your whole life. Would you say there was a mindset shift from recreational use to medical use?
Oh yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, now I realize that all cannabis is medicine, but when I was younger, I didn't quite understand it that way. My mom was my introduction to cannabis. She smoked it from the time she was 15 years old, including during the time that she was pregnant with me. It wasn't until, those documentaries when I watched Weed the People and the Rick Simpson story and, just seeing the amazing transformations that were happening in the people in those films that completely changed my perspective on the plant 100%. Like now I understand that there can be no dispute that all cannabis is medicine and that really what changes is simply your intention.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. The very different between um substituting cannabis as instead of alcohol versus intentionally using it for specific reasons.
Absolutely.
How has cannabis changed your present situation? So where are you at today?
Well, I can certainly say that it's completely changed every aspect of my life. At this point, I have no evidence of disease, but I am
So
still
amazing.
waiting.
I just love
Yeah.
that.
Now, I can't get a doctor to admit that to me, but for the last 3 years, I have had completely stable scans with zero progression, no pain, healing of the metastasis in my bones, reduction of the lymph node activity that's going on. Every single time, I've left the doctors, they have called me unremarkable, which apparently is something you want to be in the cancer space. But my last appointment at the oncologist, I was like, can you prove to me that there's still active cancer in my body? Because, I was tired of hearing that I was just stable because I was like, I don't feel like this, I actually have cancer anymore. Like I really don't. And when I asked her if she could prove to me that I did, she said no, that she couldn't prove that to me. So this is where I am. So right now I'm living my best cancer-free life. So, and
And you can prove it by just living
I
on.
live in it. I live in it. Exactly. So that's what I'm doing. I'm kind of leaving them behind and, just going at it alone.
That's such an incredible story. What would you say to someone considering cannabis for their own medical plan?
Yeah, I would say that I would consider cannabis a first line treatment as opposed to a last ditch effort. I mean, there's so much evidence showing what cannabis can do. And, and there's so much more coming as well. And there's not just the studies, but there are thousands of anecdotal stories out there as well. So, I'm just really hoping that we can see that one day. But, I'm not holding my breath, but, the
Nice fun.
endocannabinoids, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, the endocannabinoid system is like the regulator of our immune system, and your immune system is your number one defense against disease. So, I would say that cannabis is our best defense against most diseases. So I would say go for
Absolutely. I totally agree. It's, if um like cannabis itself is such a stress reducer, and stress is the number
it.
one reason for all of the issues within our body.
90%. Yeah, 90% of all disease are caused by stress. And yeah, if we can manage that, then yeah, we'd be a lot less sick.
Absolutely. And there'd be a
Mm.
lot more love in the world too.
Yes, I agree.
Is there anything else you would like to add to your story or share about cannabis, or how you would recommend it or talk about it? Anything else?
Um, you know, I just I just, we have so many tools at our disposal, and cannabis is really an amazing one. But as amazing as it is, it's also not a panacea. It's not a cure-all. Um, you know, I I believe that for true healing to happen within ourselves, that it takes a kind of mind, body, and spiritual connection. And cannabis is that great catalyst that can bring you into your mind and bring you into your body. So, like, yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And I think, yeah, we need more of it in our lives, and we would have a lot more love and a lot more health. But again, it's not gonna, you know, it's not that panacea. And unfortunately, it's not a cure all for every single person, but it's shown tremendous benefit for so many people.
I believe that I believe everything you're saying with that cannabis, not only does it balance our body within the endocannabinoid system and all the systems in our body, but it balances us between mind, body, and spirit. And when you can
100%.
embrace um, those other layers of cannabis use in that way, it does bring a lot more healing. It helps relieve the old stuff within your body, not just the present stuff that you're dealing with, but being able to relieve the layers of the trauma and stress that has been built up within.
Mhm.
But it takes your own work. Like nothing is
Sure.
guaranteed without
Exactly.
the effort you put in yourself. And so being able
Exactly. And
to,
your intention.
yeah, I was just going to say, and
Yeah.
and being intentional with how you approach with that,
Mhm.
um, it it all works together.
Exactly.
So you have your one-on-one coaching, the
Mhm.
Anecdotal Collective, which I love that name, that's so cute, and
Thank
your
you.
new educational series, High Hopes for Healing. So tell me more
Mhm.
about this.
Yeah, so I mean, when I was first diagnosed, I was looking for community. I was looking for, places where I could go, where I could get information. And the groups that I found myself in were very overwhelming and very full of people who were just kind of keyboard warriors or kind of spreading, like hearsay and, like third party hearsay and just inaccurate information straight up. And so, I really wanted that place of community and that connection with other people who were in the same situation that I was in. So, I couldn't find it. So I decided I had to create it instead, right? So the Anecdotal Collective, it does have a home on Facebook as a Facebook group, but what it will essentially be is a online group where people can meet. At present, it'll be once a month, so that we can just share stories and, be supportive and interactive with each other. And then, I'm hoping kind of down the road that the information that is shared can kind of be collective so that in the future, we can all, gain from it and, live healthier, longer, better lives. So, really happy to announce that the first meeting of the Anecdotal Collective will be on Monday, February 13th at 6:30 p.m. So I hope to meet some, like-minded people. And then, yeah, the High Hopes for Healing course is like a 5-part educational series that I've been working on, kind of my baby, my passion project, because I do feel like this information is so important and really needs to get out there. So I'm trying to, find a way to package all this information so that I can teach people how they can utilize this plant in so many ways to benefit them on their cancer healing journeys. So that's supposed to be launching in mid 2023. So that is the hope. So you can, head to my website for more details on that, and I think in there you can sign up for updates as well, for when I announce the course launch.
That's so amazing. You're going to be helping so many people with this, and I can't wait to be part of your Anecdotal Collective and join in on the healing talks. I know there's just so much misinformation out there. There's
Mhm.
scientific studies that are kind of inconclusive and don't have the stats that
Mhm.
are needed, but still publishing some of those myths and questionable theories.
Mhm.
Um, so the education and with your education that you're part of,
Yes.
a Canadian group
Yes.
for education on cannabis, and being part of the Effective Cannabis newsletter here with us,
Mhm.
I'm just looking forward to the articles that you're going to be writing and the education that we're sharing with everyone.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited as well. So 2023 is going to be a great year.
It is. It really is. So thank you so much for joining me today. Your story is absolutely incredible. There's people that are going to learn so much from this, and I hope that that spurs some more talks about cannabis and their own health plans, and more talks to the doctor so that they can start getting on board with this. So
Absolutely.
thanks again.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you, Michelle.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon.
Have you or a loved one been diagnosed with cancer? Have you heard that cannabis can help but aren't sure where or how to start? Have you gone to your doctor for answers and only come away with more questions? That was me 3 years ago. Unaware, unsure, and eager for alternatives. In my search, I learned that cannabis had tremendous benefits, and after my very first dose, my circumstances were forever changed. Since then, I've spent my time learning all I can about how cannabis can help, and now I'd like to pass that information along to you. If you'd like to learn more about how cannabis can help you on your cancer journey, then please join me at the Canactotal Collective. The Canactotal Collective is an online space offering information, guidance, and support to those looking to learn more about how cannabis can help to improve outcomes and quality of life after a cancer diagnosis. Our first meeting is Monday, February 13th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we will meet every second Monday of the month until June. Registration is required and completely free to attend. Links will be provided, or you can head to my website, naturalisticallynow.com, to learn more. I look forward to seeing you in the Zoom room. Thank you, and remember to live like your life depended on it.